I believe this film, far better than any words of mine, will give you a better understanding of the important roles played by stylists and styling in General Motors.
It was a different place, a different time. Harley Earl was born in Hollywood a year before the first motion picture, 2 years before Henry Ford's first automobile. It was a time of promise and possibility. As a boy, Harley Earl made models out of clay, models of automobiles not as they were, but as they might be. After attending Stanford, Earl worked in his father's carriage shop, creating custom bodies for the movie crowd, special cars for stars like Fatty Arbuckle, Tom Mix, and Mary Miles Minter. The big companies like Ford and General Motors didn't have styling departments in those days. If you wanted a fashionable car, you bought a Cadillac or Packard and had it rebodied by a Brewster, Murphy, Judkins, or Earl. This man sought to change all that, Alfred Sloan. So he invited Harley Earl, not yet 34, to design the first LaSalle, a lower-priced luxury model. The LaSalle was such an extraordinary success that it would literally change the course of automotive history. As a result, Harley Earl was asked to start the industry's first in-house department of design.
Well, then they asked me to come back and do the Cadillac for 1928, the 27 Cadillac, rather. And then I was all through naturally with it and went back about my business when Mr. Sloan phoned from New York. Mr. Sloan had suggested that the General Motors have a central designing staff.
Right away, General Motors' new art and color section began to do things in ways no one had previously imagined. Earl pioneered the use of full-size models. The trouble with small models, he said, is that your eyes don't shrink with the model. Earl pioneered clay modeling techniques in place of wood. Wood was stiff and formal. Clay lent itself to softer, rounder shapes. More than anyone, Earl changed the shape and proportions of the car. Longer, lower, wider was his credo. It was Earl who would eliminate the running board, who would integrate the headlights, fenders, grille, and trunk. It was Earl who would introduce the pillarless top, the hidden spare and curved glass. And yet it is not for these milestones that Harley Earl is often remembered, because Harley Earl also created the tail fin. Tail fins would make their first appearance on the 1948 Cadillac. At first, the public was slow to accept the fin. So, of course, Earl made them bigger. Soon, Cadillac sales nearly doubled, and everyone rushed to copy them. But even more important than the changes Harley Earl made to the shape of the automobile were the changes he made to its character. It became the symbol of our dreams and aspirations. Earl invented the dream car to give substance to the public's yearnings. The first was the Buick Y Job. The Y Job made its first appearance in 1937. A wire service reporter, seeing it for the first time 11 years later, thought it was the 1949 Buick and sent pictures of it, identified as such, to news desks around the country. It was that far ahead of its time. Probably the most influential of Harley's dream cars was the LeSabre. As the Second World War drew to a close, GM management asked Earl to create a car that would serve as a beacon of post-war design. The car that Earl proposed was longer, lower, and wider, as usual, but the LeSabre was much, much more. 30 years before they appeared in foreign luxury cars, the LeSabre had heated seats. 40 years before Mercedes could boast a one-touch top, the LeSabre top closed automatically at a drop of rain. But more important was the overall effect. The LeSabre was like something from another galaxy. The LeSabre was a star, wherever it appeared, captivating audiences all across America and Europe. Over the course of his career, Harley Earl influenced the design of more than 50 million cars. But he never rested on his laurels. He never talked about the past. For him, it was only the next car, the next design that mattered. Still, there were a few cars that were special, even to Harley Earl. In 1951, Earl attended the sports car races at Watkins Glen. He noticed a lot of the younger people were driving small British cars with names like Jaguar and MG. So Earl began to work on a sports car of his own. Its name, Corvette. And so we are left to ask ourselves, not what did Harley Earl accomplish, but how did he do so much? Part of it was talent, of course, a natural eye for good design. Part of it was the sheer force of his personality. Earl was a giant of a man, 6 feet 4 1/2, 235 pounds, and while he could be as charming as a prince, he was also a perfectionist. But probably the best answer is that Harley Earl, like the great entertainers, had an uncanny sense of what the public wanted. Earl told interviewers that two of his biggest influences were Al Jolson and Cecil B. DeMille. Jolson, because he taught him how to judge an audience. DeMille, for his lessons in showmanship and theatricality. Harley Earl applied these lessons better than anyone. He brought to the design world what DeMille and others had brought to the world of film. He was a pioneer and a visionary. He blazed almost every important trail. There have been 1,000 great designers in the history of the automobile. Each of them owes a debt to Harley Earl.